Ivan, man, it is always an honor to get a chance to speak with you. For folks who are watching this whole interview on Rudy Blair Entertainment Media, RudyBlairMedia.com, I was just mentioning Ivan that I had spoken. He and I did a one-on-one interview 25 years ago at my old radio station. I had such a blast. I still have the photo of you and I. Man, when I think about that interview, and I just think about Men Without Hats and what you've done for the Canadian music landscape and electro pop, and just being in that cutting edge of Canadian music being brought out worldwide in such a different way and a different thought, and music videos to the point where when the Simpsons can spoof your music, you know you've done something, man. How does it feel to have that type of legacy?
We're truly blessed, very, very doubly blessed. It's been a great ride, and I loved every minute of it.
Do you ever get tired talking about it? Because you know people always want to talk about Safety Dance and all
Oh
your
yeah.
other hits, but they always go to Safety Dance also. Do you
Mhm.
ever get tired of it? Because I know some artists don't like talking about, certain major hits that they have.
No, no, I love it. I love it. I every time I play it, I enjoy it more. There's a smile that I bring on people's faces when we break into it live. It's incredible. I love it.
Let me guess, everybody's skipping around in the circle, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah. No, it's great. It's a lot of people can relate to it, so it's good.
Absolutely. And you go on YouTube or you hear some of the mixes. I think there's like I think it's 17 minutes long. Somebody remixed Safety Dance. I mean, it's that kind of a party song, like you just said. As soon as you start hearing those beats, everybody knows, and it's on. Everybody's on the floor. I want to talk a little bit about, of course, Safety Dance, and I want to get to the new music, which is extremely important, and congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank
Though,
you.
but honestly, I want to jump back to what it was like for you and the band for, as we can say now, back in the day, in the 80s. Like I said, watching Canadian music, because there was a time where it was just like the Guess Who and Gordon Lightfoot and those classic artists were only the artists that people knew around the world. And then something changed.
Mhm.
And then suddenly, groups like yourself, Platinum Blonde, Corey Hart, it can just go on and on. And people are going, wait a minute, these artists are from Canada?
Yeah.
What's going on here? Glass Tiger. What was that like to have that renaissance, as I want to put that, happen for Canadian music?
No, the '80s were a good time for Canadian music. The Spoons, Martha and the Muffins, Parachute Club. You say the list goes on and on. It reminds me of I went to Australia once, and it was crazy too because Australia is like that too. A lot of their music happened during the '80s, and no, it was good times for us.
When you guys were creating that sound, did you have any idea that it would be cutting edge? I mean, where did that sound come from you guys? And who were you listening? What were you listening to when you were growing up?
Well, I was a teenager in the '70s, so it was classic rock, but also because I came from Montreal, there was a lot of progressive rock, like Genesis and Pink Floyd were really big in Montreal. And disco was really big too. And I've always said that new wave music for me was a blend, a combination of progressive keyboard music plus disco. It was keyboard music with a dance beat, and that's basically where I come from. That's what we brought to the table, and it was like I say, it was exciting times. It was an artistic movement too. There was new video, new technology, new clothing, new hairstyles. It was new everything. So it was good. It was a good time to be making music.
I always thought you guys had a touch of Bowie in you too, not just musically, but visually too. Theatrics, and again, you talk about Genesis. Genesis was really big, of course, with the theatrics. I always thought the same thing with Bowie. Why was that part so important? Because this is even as we were going into music videos, you guys were still kind of doing this kind of stuff on stage.
Yeah, well, we come from a time where the bands I grew up with, there were no videos, there was no internet. Obviously, there was all they had was their stage performance. That was the only thing besides the album that they had, and the shows were pretty amazing. I was fortunate enough to have seen Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon tour, and so I had these visuals in my head growing up, and that's what we kind of continued. The new wave movement was very, very visual. It was like you said, it was the beginning of videos. The video of Safety Dance changed my life. I went from being an unknown guy from Montreal to have my face recognized all over the world. So it was quite a change for me.
And everybody doing the movements, everything. Like, it's crazy. You've talked about the story many times. I had asked you back then, but just to remind people, of course, though, what the song is about and the story behind the video, because this is important. And when we talk about what we're going to talk about when we come to the new music.
Yeah. Well, the song Safety Dance was written following me getting kicked out of clubs for pogo dancing to new wave music whenever it would come on. It was the dying days of disco, the end of the 70s, and you'd go to a discotheque, they'd still play disco, but every now and then they'd slip in Blondie's Heart of Glass or B-52's Rock Lobster, and we'd jump up and down the pogo dance, and it was the kind of the precursor to slam dancing. So people in the club didn't really know what was going on, and we would get kicked out. So I just went home one day and was fed up and wrote this song, and the rest is history.
History too is the video, because a lot of times back then, not all videos were that great. I mean, it was the beginning, so people were still trying to feel out how videos were supposed to be put together, and not everybody had Michael Jackson money to put on these elaborate videos. But you guys pulled off something that ended up being a classic because it was just done so damn good and it was so different. How did that idea come up with the storyline on the video and just the way it was put together? I could not imagine, like today, it would be easy. Back then, it's like putting together a whole movie.
Yeah, what happened there was the director, Tim Pope, and I had the same idea for the Pied Piper theme going in there. And I think one of the reasons is that it's so enduring, the video is so enduring, is because it is timeless. A lot of people were expecting some guy with zipper clothing and a pointy hairdo coming out and doing something new wave, and to see some kind of medieval setting with little people and Morris dancers and crazy chicks, and I think that's what stuck in people's mind, and the message too. I mean, the message is also timeless. The message is cross-generational, so we were lucky with that one.
As music changed, as we were going into the 90s and 2000s, what did the band end up doing? How did the band keep going? Was there a point where the band stopped and then came back? I know, of course, like I said, you and I spoke. You were doing solo music. What was going on during that time?
Well, after that record, I actually took some time off. I took a few years. I became a stay-at-home dad and raised my son until he was of age to get to school by himself and back in, and I hit the road again. That's what happened.
Well, like I said, you've made such an impact on the music scene, and that impact is still being felt today. When you hear some of the bands of today, can you hear a little bit of Men Without Hats in their music? Like I said, things have changed up, but you still can hear that influence. To me, you can still hear it.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of bands out there. That's what I think is partly what enables us to be out there, to keep playing, to keep being relevant today. Is that a lot of the sounds that you hear from contemporary music are from the 80s? The big kick, the snare, the synthesizers. I mean, even you listen to somebody like The Weeknd. For me, that could have happened in the 80s, no problem. It's great.
What is it? Like, let me put it this way. During this pandemic, okay, I literally have been restocking up all my 80s music. some 90s, but mostly 80s. And it's just something about the texture of the music. Why do you think 80s music is, to me, timeless, no matter who the band is or the artist?
Myself, I think personally, I think it's because it's a dance music. I think that's one of the reasons, kind of like
Yeah.
disco. Disco's still around because disco's a dance music. It's got that tempo, it's got that, whatever, 130 beats per minute, 140 beats per minute. And 80s music is kind of the same way. There's a lot of melody. It's, you can see it, juxtaposes to what came next, which is the 90s, which was a lot more somber in delivery and message. The 80s were kind of a party time. There was like, it was Studio 54. It was all kinds of stuff. It was good.
What would you have said? Because, of course, this is Toronto for me. What was your favorite venue to play at in Toronto back in the day, and why? Do you remember?
Well, I remember our first show in Toronto was uh, just off just off Yonge Street. I think it was called the Domino Club.
Yes. What was
That
that
was
like performing there?
it was great for us. It was our first time in Toronto. We were on tour. It was a dream come true. And just to go to another city and people knew who you were and had your record. Were playing your record at the club, and yeah. And then I think one of the land sort of milestone concerts for us was in Toronto. Was at Ontario Place. We played 2 nights in Ontario Place, and that really sort of shifted the landscape for us. It was. I always look back at those shows as a defining moment in our career.
I miss that. That's the revolving stage that went around. I miss that stage so much. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, like I said, great days, great times, great everything. Going back to safety dance, I mentioned about The Simpsons. What would you say has been the most odd, either movie or show or whatever, or commercial, whatever, where you heard your song being played?
Well, one of my favorite uh, covers has always been not cover, but the uh, appearances of our song has been in Beavis and Butthead. When the guy says you can dance, but he can't dance, and who does he think he is, Michael Jackson? And I still watch that now and then to get a chuckle.
Oh my goodness. Well, you know what? Like I said, there's new music. You guys have been busy in the studio. What has been going on in the last year or so? Because as we speak, new album, and new single coming out too. What's been going on?
Yeah, we just got out of the studio. We were holed up for the last 7 or 8 months on top of the Malahat Mountain on Vancouver Island, and we've released our first half of the album. The album is called Men Without Hats Again, parts 1 and 2. And we've released our first single off part one. Part one is 5 cover songs. We do songs by Lou Reed, the Tragically Hip, the Rolling Stones, and Mott the Hoople. And we also do cool. We also do a rendition of Men Without of our own song. We do a reinvented reimagination of safety dance, um, going back to it's sort of the scenario is going back to the village of West Kingston where the original video was shot, and the jester is now the mayor, and he's married to the crazy blonde woman, and they have a huge family and run some kind of store or something. And anyway, this is the soundtrack to that, to me going back there 40 years later and seeing how they're doing. And that's the whole premise.
Are we going to see a video of this? That's the thing I'm dying for.
Yeah.
I've heard the redone version that you guys did. I thought it was very cool. In fact, I thought to myself, I couldn't imagine anybody trying to do that except you guys. I think you guys are the only ones who could have made that successful. But the video, though, what's going to happen with that?
Yeah, well, it's in the works. We're talking. I'm in contact with the jester, Mike Edmonds, who he's over in England. So we're just piecing it together.
That's going to be amazing. Oh my goodness. Wow. What about performances? What's going to be happening with that? Any chance, because things are opening up throughout the country,
They
will you
are.
guys be touring?
Yeah, we are. We started a couple of weeks ago, and we're headed off to the States this week. Things are opening up there. So next year is the 40th anniversary of the Rhythm of Youth album, the Safety Dance record. So we're going to be putting together quite an extensive tour for 2022, and we've got Canada penciled in there for the summer. So it's looking good.
Looking forward to it, man. Look, before we wrap this up, any advice that you want to give the new school artists who are out there, who are, whether they're struggling, whether they're on top of the world and putting out music? I mean, you've seen it, you've gone through it, you're still doing it. What advice can you give them that you learned that has helped you stay in the game, enjoy it, and be successful?
Just follow your dream. Follow your dream and do what the message that I've trying to get through in the safety dance is, you can dance if you want to, and don't feel any pressure. Don't just follow your dream.
Ivan, my dream, like I said, if you told me as a kid, driving my Camaro and blaring your music, that I would not only get a chance to meet you, but interview you again.
All right.
You made dreams come true for me, man. Thank you so much for the interview. Thank you so much for the great music in the past, and looking forward to the great music in the future. Thank you
Well,
again.
thank you.